Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
There will be a brief ad at the end of this video. Brad sent me a note and said, Steve, check out this story. It happened in your backyard. And I don't think he realized it's the trifecta. It's the Detroit Free Press that published it, and that's the paper I delivered as a young man. It's written by Neil Rubin, a columnist I've spoken to many times, and an attorney in the story is an attorney I know. And so it was a pleasant surprise to read this wonderful article by Neil Rubin about an Oak Park woman who got $88,000 after a lawn service made a very bad mistake and harmed her lawn and then didn't want to make it good. So all she wanted was an apology and a solution. She didn't get either, but a jury came back in her favor. So it's a reminder that it's good to own up to your mistakes. What happened was that on May 27th of 2020, a landscaping company showed up at the wrong house, and they showed up at the one in Oak Park where a woman named Marilyn Mack grew strawberries for the neighbor kids to pick as they strolled by on the sidewalk. The company sprayed weed killer and fertilizer on the chemical-free front lawn that she spent 7 years turning to clover, on her berries and her beans, on her identity really as a masterful organic gardener and a friend to the planet and the block. The clover died, it turned black and blotchy within days. The produce and the adjoining perennials were drenched with weed killer. And so now she's not even sure about how safe that dirt is. So an Oakland County jury in circuit court there ordered the Natural Way Lawn and Tree Service of Lake Orion to pay up because their response was simply a shrug, as Neil puts it. Across 2+ years, that became a shrug and a final settlement offer, up from $500 to $2,000. And then at one point in time, apparently they threatened her. So she wanted something that they hadn't considered. She said, I wanted someone to take responsibility. I wanted them to fix it. So she wanted new dirt, if that's what it would take to put her on the path to what she had before. So the jury got it and expressed sympathy in the numerical form of $88,550. So in case you're curious, she gets up most days at 4:30 in the morning, bakes sourdough bread for 3 hours, which she then gives away. And that which she does not give away, she donates to a food pantry. So she also donates money to a bulldog rescue organization, and she's got a dog as well and a cat who apparently were hanging out with Neil and her as they were being interviewed, her family. So she and her husband, Brian, share a 920 square foot house they bought 10 years ago. It's a pretty small house, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, but the deal was that it has an oversized lot, and she liked that. So now she's turned that into a kaleidoscopic ecosystem that has all kinds of things: tomato plants, Chinese long beans, herbs, garlic, horseradish, rhubarb, flowers, and some useful tips that she always gives out if people ask, such as if you want to keep insects away from your tomatoes, plant basil alongside the vines. Earwigs will ignore corn if you intersperse cabbage, and so on. She enjoys spending time in the dirt, and she said, I've been doing this for quite some time. So what happened was she was out back on that day in question 3 years ago, and her husband yelled from inside the house, because he was inside, he was not feeling well that day, get to the front yard and hurry. And there she encountered a technician from Natural Way spraying something on her lawn. Now, here's the problem, that clover is not actually a weed. And I know some people who like their grass to look like the putting green at a golf course, okay? That's fine if that's what you want. I've got clover in my yard too, and I like it. The rabbits like it. I got no problem with clover. So it's not a weed. And Max says she prefers the clover to the grass because of how it interacts with the soil. It's softer than grass, and it needs less mowing. And pollinators also like it. She points out rabbits like it too. So to replace her shabby grass, she had overseeded it with clover again and again, letting it slowly take over. So she shouted at the technician to stop, and he said, "You're crazy. You don't live here." Now, there's nothing worse than somebody showing up and telling you that you're wrong about something so fundamental as where you live. So someone is in your yard destroying your plants, And when you ask them to stop, they say, "You're crazy, you don't live here." It turned out that he was supposed to be working next door. He had not checked the home's address, and that came out during pretrial discovery, which is, of course, a violation of company policy. He was spraying in 11-mile-per-hour winds, and the label on the weed killer said that it should be sprayed at 10 miles per hour or less with respect to wind speed. Applying potent chemicals at an organic gardener's home is like topping a teetotaler's ice cream with creme de menthe. What's routine to some is, of course, sacrilege to others. And again, this is Neil Rubin describing this situation. So she consulted with all kinds of people trying to figure out what it's going to take. And some people said, it'll be about 4 years. You're going to spend 4 years trying to repair that yard from the chemicals that got sprayed on it. So the company kept telling her they weren't going to help her out. So after 16 months, she found a lawyer, and this is Neil's description, a lawyer foolish and successful enough to take her case. So she does actually have a job of her own, so she actually has other things to do. But somebody she works with suggested she consult with a lawyer, and somehow she got hooked up with an attorney in Royal Oak whose name is David Zupke. David Zupke. I know David, and I've worked with David before on a case where he and I both represented plaintiffs. Now, he says he could tell immediately there was no money to be made in this case, and he determined almost as quickly that he was, in fact, going to take it. So once in a while, a case does speak to you like that. Zupke says there's something about this that's magical. It means something when you're representing someone who bakes bread for the neighborhood. So they've become friends, and occasionally he's gotten some loaves of bread out of it too. But the fact is, he says, between preparation and exhibits and experts and a trial that lasted 3 days, he said he probably put in about $80,000 worth of work, and he does not expect to get reimbursed for that. It's just something that had to be done. Through a legal process not worth explaining, he stands to collect at least $40,000, but that would only be if this whole thing stands up on appeal and the company pays. But the company has said they do intend to appeal. Now, one thing you have to remember in Michigan, if you appeal a case like this that you've lost, the court might make you post a bond, and by might, I mean they will. And the bond will be 1.5 times that judgment. So if they want to appeal this, they can put the money up. And if they lose the appeal, then they get paid, the plaintiff and the attorney. But the question is, will they actually appeal it? The company's vice president told the Free Press that from our perspective, we're not interested in giving an interview. We're going to move forward with no comment. So that, by the way, was one of the witnesses that Zupke called during the trial. And then, of course, Mack also testified. And the trial was solely about damages because due to pretrial motions, the court had already basically determined that this company was liable for what they'd done because there's no question. They sprayed the wrong lawn. And so if there are things that the parties don't dispute, you don't have to start from square one when you go to trial. So if the court determines that, wait, you guys admit you sprayed her lawn, that you're the one she was talking to and told her she didn't know where she lived, okay. So you did do that. Okay. Well, the liability seems pretty clear at that point. Now we're just talking about damages. So the company had already suggested in filings that Mack bore some responsibility for what happened, and they had threatened to chase her down for legal fees incurred in defending unfounded and frivolous allegations. So they called her claims frivolous. They destroyed her yard, but the claims are frivolous. The jury, however, didn't seem to buy that. They were only out 57 minutes. They were not out for 1 full hour. And by the way, when a jury's return that quickly, you have to remember that they have a bunch of instructions about what they're supposed to do when they go back to the jury room. But the first thing they probably do when they exit the courtroom itself is probably go to the restrooms because they've been sitting in court for a while listening to closing arguments and jury instructions. They get up, they walk out, they have to go to the bathroom. I'm just talking about reality here. Then they all return from the restrooms. They go into the jury deliberation room, and then they have to pick a foreperson. Now, I don't know if you've ever been involved in elections before, but sometimes they can take a while. So it was still less than an hour for them to do all the things required under the instructions, including picking a foreperson, filling out the verdict form, and then letting the court know that we have a verdict. And 57 minutes later, they've done all that stuff, and they came back and said $22,550 in actual damages and $66,000 for causing pain and being clods, as Neil Rubin put it. Max says it's a very powerful thing. The jury of my peers told me I wasn't crazy. That validation is what I wanted. And as a bonus, assuming nothing changes with the appeal, she and her husband will wind up with a windfall unprecedented in their hardworking lives. She's a musician, so she's thinking about maybe getting a new guitar. And as she says, it'd be nice to have an underground sprinkler system maybe, so she doesn't have to go outside and spend all her time watering when she could have her hands in the dirt, because that's what she really enjoys the most. So it's a crazy story, but it has a happy ending. And I was just so pleased to read this yesterday and see that Neil Rubin wrote it, the Free Press ran it, and David Zupke is the attorney who helped her out all the way through trial. And she got a jury verdict, $88,550. And this is the kind of thing where I understand mistakes can get made, but that's what insurance is for. And that's also why you train your employees to do the right thing. And so if they showed up and sprayed weed killer on somebody's garden by accident, you go, oh, we made a mistake. We're sorry. What do we need to do to make this better? It wouldn't have cost them $88,550, nor would they have had to hire attorneys to do that, most likely. And that's the sad part. So I have to tell you that Neil Rubin is the columnist who wrote the article about the lug nut case in Michigan. And he interviewed me about that. And I think I talked about that in one of my videos about the lug nuts. He also interviewed me a couple times about the Chrysler Turbine car story. And also, at least once, about the Italian Hall disaster. So Neil's a great guy. He's a columnist for the Free Press who tends to write personal interest stories, but he somehow finds these fascinating ones. And it was just, like I said, it was a great story here because it involved the Free Press, Neil Rubin, and an attorney that I know very well, David Zupke, who's a great guy. So it ends well, but nobody wants to go through litigation, especially when you get dragged into it like that, because she didn't choose to have them spray the wrong lawn. They did that all on their own. So Brad, thanks for sending it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I didn't say it was your fault. I said I was blaming you.
Okay, as I mentioned at the top, I am doing a brief ad here. And you may notice, number one, I'm not at my desk. There's a reason for that. I'll explain in a second. But what we're talking about today is FlexiSpot chairs. Okay, a company called FlexiSpot. They actually make desks and chairs. But my people contacted me and said, Steve, we've been asked, would you be interested in an ergonomic chair? Now, one thing you might not guess is that when I'm shooting my videos, I'm sitting in an extremely cheap folding chair. I've had people ask me, and they say, Steve, why do you do that? Why don't you get yourself a nice chair for when you're on camera? And I always tell people who ask that I actually think it's more important for me to be in one place and not be rocking around and moving and stuff while I'm on camera. And besides, I'm only on camera for 10, 15 minutes of video, 2 videos a day, half hour a day in that chair. It's not that big of a deal. The most important chair in my life is the one at my work desk. I sit at my work desk sometimes 6 or 8 hours a day. So I'm doing legal work, I'm editing videos, I'm talking on the phone, I'm writing stuff, I'm doing emails, correspondence, whatever it might be. So that chair is the most important chair in my life. So when my people contact me and say, Steve, are you interested? I said, well, I'm interested, but the same deal applies, has applied in everything else I've done. They've got to send me one, I've got to try it, I've got to like it. If I like it, we'll talk. So they sent me this chair. And the first thing to tell you, when you get a chair in the mail, as you might know, when you get the chair, you've got to build it. You got to assemble it. So I thought to myself, actually, Steve, you know something? The process of your relationship with the chair begins when you put that box on your floor and you slice into it. Time it. Time it. See how long it takes you to build that chair. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in it. So it took me 30 minutes and 15 seconds to build that chair. So number one, I did that. And I was not cussing up a storm like I often am. So everything was there. The instructions were clear. It was easy to build. I put it together. I thought, this is kind of cool. I sat down and I thought, hey, this is actually a comfortable chair. And now I'm going to tell you right now, I burn through work chairs to the point where I was buying them off of a very large internet retailer. And every so often they'd break. I'd order a new one, and when I went in, I'd find the same one I bought last time. They'd say, you ordered this 8 months ago, 10 months ago, whatever. And they'd break on me. I'd buy a new one, and I got to the point where I considered my work chairs to be disposable. So I'd kind of like given up on that. And so when I got this chair, and I put it on my desk, and I actually thought, wow, this chair's comfortable. First of all, it has a headrest, which my other chair did not. But also, it's got a lumbar support back here, and I'll show you some of this stuff using a second camera and some multi-camera techniques. But it's got a lumbar support back here, and everything on it is adjustable. You can adjust it to where you can rock back, you can fix the back, you can adjust the arms, you can adjust how high the seat is, you can adjust everything. So I put it together, I set it at my desk, I got it, and I thought, wow, this is kind of nice. I dialed it in, got to just where I liked it, and I thought, wow, this is cool. This is cool. So I'm going to let you know right now that this is not at my work desk. I pulled this out so I could get some better shots of it. And I sat down in my other chair briefly while I was setting this up. And I thought to myself, oh my, you don't even need to save this chair. It's so uncomfortable compared to this chair. So I'm letting you know right now that I got this chair, and I love this chair. And I now sit in this chair as I do my work. In fact, I've had this chair now for 2 or 3 weeks. I've sat in it every single day since I got it, and I love this chair. So it's a Flexi Spot chair, but they do know, they're known for making ergonomic chairs and also standing desks. Now, I have not gotten into the standing desk thing just yet. I like sitting at my desk. So right now, we're just talking about the chair, but the chair is amazing. It's comfortable. It looks good. And let's face it, the number one thing with a chair is how does it feel when you're sitting in it? Are you comfortable sitting in the chair? So I'm going to tell you something right now. And this is the kind of thing, and this, by the way, this is why I don't have this on my set, because I'd be too tempted to do this when I get comfortable. But I can do this now, right? Why not? I was sitting in my chair, my Flexi Spot chair, at my desk doing my work. And it was late in the day, it had been a long day, and I took a break, and I was listening to music, and I put my head back on the headrest, and I fell asleep. Now, I can say that because I'm my own boss. I'm self-employed, so I can't get fired for admitting I fell asleep on the job. But I fell asleep in my Flexi Spot chair because that's how comfortable it is. And I started thinking to myself, when was the last time I fell asleep in a chair? And I have a big comfy chair like in my living room in front of a TV set. I've fallen asleep there. I've also managed to fall asleep in a car where I intended to, where I was taking a long, long drive, and I stopped at a rest area, I pulled off the side, and I leaned my seat back, managed to fall asleep a little bit. I fell asleep in the Flexi Spot chair, and I was sleeping like a baby. So they actually say, you know something, if you can, mention a few personal anecdotes. I'm letting you know right now, that's absolutely true. And the fact that I fell asleep in the chair, to me, is absolutely magnificent. Magnificent. Now, you won't fall asleep in this chair if you buy one and have it at your workplace, okay? I mean, I'm telling you right now, I was listening to music, I leaned back, I put my head back and closed my eyes. So it's not like it's going to put you to sleep. But it's got a whole bunch of adjustments on it. It's got the lumbar support here, which I really, really like. My back is okay, but once in a while it feels a little rough. This thing's really, really comfortable. It's got all kinds of adjustments. Like I said, you can adjust the height, adjust the back, you can lock the back, all kinds of stuff like that. But it is just a remarkable, remarkable chair. So I like Flexi Spot. That's why I'm here talking about the chair. And of course, I tell them, I say, look, if I'm going to talk about this chair, you got to do something for my viewers. You got to help out my viewers. So right now, it's the Flexi Spot anniversary. And they're having an anniversary sale for just a little over a week. So you can get up to 50% off items such as the ergonomic chairs and the standing desks. But also, because you watch this channel, and I know you do, that's a safe statement, isn't it? In addition to the 50% off for the anniversary, the viewers of Lehto's Law can get an extra 10% off by using the code Lehto at the link in the description. I'll put all this information on the screen and below the video. This time, we're not going Lehto's Law. That's a little too complicated. Just go Lehto, 5 letters, Lehto. T-O. Use that code and you'll get 10% off the already reduced price because of the FlexiSpot anniversary sale that's going on right now. So I'm sitting here in my FlexiSpot chair. I'll make sure that you get a good look at it and everything here. But again, the call to action is go to the website, click the link below, use the Lehto discount code, get 10% off the already reduced anniversary price from FlexiSpot. I'll talk to you later.